Welcome back to Everyday Courage. I'm David Millstone.
And I'm Stefan Dweck.
And today we have a super special guest. Welcome to Dr. Monica Dweck, my co-host Stefan Dweck's much admired big sister.
That's right.
Dr. Dweck is a recently retired ophthalmologist and surgeon. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
With an insanely long list of accomplishments and accolades. Since 1999, she's been listed annually in U.S. News and World Report's New York's Metro's Best Doctors, which represents the top 7% of all U.S. practicing physicians.
For Castle Conley. The New York Times Magazine has included her annually in its New York Super Doctors, I love that, since 2009. She received the Exceptional Women in Medicine Award from Castle Conley Medical in 2019. A tribute in Monica's honor, Women Who Dared to Be Different, was presented to the 110th United States Congress. Second session, 2008, I'm being very accurate here, by Congressman Ed Towns. There's more, there's a lot more. And I hope a lot of it comes up. But I'm eager to hear from Monica herself before I go on. But I must add, Monica is also distinguished by the fact that she's the only person I've heard her brother be a little bit afraid of.
She used to beat me up to wash the dishes.
So
good one, Millstone.
Oh, my goodness. How are you guys today?
We're well. How are you?
Really
I'm great. It's been a great day, and I'm happy that you invited me to do this.
Well, thank you. Is this the kind of thing you do? Have you done a podcast before?
I did. I recently did a podcast for blackdoctor.org talking about workplace eye injuries and about the need for certain safety measures to prevent them. And about 1,000 people attended online. There were various streaming services, and so it went over very, very well. So yeah, I occasionally do this.
So are you actually ever the sort of the subject personally yourself of a podcast, or are you always there giving professional information?
Always giving professional information, either from a specific oculoplastic surgery perspective or giving advice, career advice, things like that. But
great.
This is the first time that I've been the focus, actually.
Fantastic. You are a virgin.
You deserve it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you deserve it. Go ahead, start it off.
So, from what I know about you, life is filled. Your professional life, I don't know yet much about your personal life, is filled with firsts, which would seem kind of challenging. So yeah, like you could not possibly have been the first Black woman at Princeton.
No, but I was in the third class of women to go for the entire 4 years at Princeton. And there were very few Black women in my class.
Mm-hmm. What years were?
Between 1972 and 1976.
Ooh, it's sort of like the cusp of things.
Yes,
a real sea change.
So I went from an all-girls high school to essentially an all-boys college.
Interesting.
So it was a very different experience.
We're talking about, this podcast is about courage, and obviously me and you are from the same place. We're from the inner city of New York.
Yes, we are.
From the housing projects. What did it take? How did you feel? Were you intimidated? Did you have to muster up the courage to go from Harlem, so to speak, to Princeton or Hunter College High School, where you went, to an environment that is sometimes not really friendly to people from where we come from?
I was actually very excited. I didn't really have much in the way of trepidation, and I think I was well prepared to handle those issues. First, by my parents. For example, when I was 3 years old, my mother told me I taught myself to read. And then when I was getting ready to enter elementary school, they put me in a regular class, and she said to them, listen, my daughter needs to be in the gifted program because she taught herself to read at 3 years old. And this is kind of history. I ended up being valedictorian in my elementary school.
I know that story. And Mom told us that you taught yourself how to read at 3 by looking at the advertisements on the subway.
Yes.
You would read them while you were in the subway car. And that our mother was tough love, right? Which is not, it's kind of typical coming from the South, tough love. But when they put you in that special class, and she was really indicating because of the color of your skin.
Yes.
She was saying that.
Yeah.
You know, you went from the special class, I think it was mainly white students.
Yes,
And then all of a sudden, you were in a class with mainly black students, black and Latino students, which isn't bad if it was the same level of educational.
I was never actually put in that class because this happened before school actually started.
Well, Ma went crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, she went basically, what the fuck are y'all doing?
Yeah, basically.
And had to go bananas. But that's a great story because the foundation
Yes.
you set the foundation for our whole family.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
I had no idea what the Ivy League was or college was. We were following you. And because you went to an elite high school with, is it Judge Sotomayor, right?
No. So for my high school, Elena Kagan, Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan, went to my high school, and then she followed me to Princeton. Justice Sonia Sotomayor was my classmate at Princeton and a dear friend.
Right. Excuse me.
Wait, and Justice Sotomayor, boy, she's killing it right now.
Oh, yeah, she really is.
She's really holding things together for us.
More power to her.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely.
So we're following your journey. As you went to Princeton, you were excited about it. The lack of, you said there were a few women and few black women, but it didn't intimidate you. You had, okay.
So while I was still in high school, I was a great student, straight A student. I did extremely well on my SATs. I was a leader in high school.
Tell them you got a perfect score.
I did very well.
1,600, the way they calculated it. Let me give you your flowers.
I did very well. And when I told the college counselor that I wanted to apply to Princeton, she said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. You won't be accepted. Don't do that. And so I walked out of her office and basically said, you know. And so when I got the acceptance letter, I said, I just wanted to share this with you. You know, her face turned red, and yeah, she was very embarrassed. Anyway.
So the two Dwecks here do have some things in common. Neither of you seem to really be intimidated by circumstances.
Well, you know, I tend to be an optimist in general. And so negative things, bad things have happened in my life, but I basically use them as a silver lining to go on and achieve something even greater. So pretty much every negative thing, every bad thing that has happened to me, I've been able to turn it around to make it work for me. And I have found out that it's worked even better than I would have imagined.
You are Ma's daughter. I see it. I mean, that strength. We don't take shit.
Yeah.
And it has served us well. But also you taught me, you know, in some ways that life, the things you can't control, the circumstances, 10% of it comes at you, and 90% is how you deal with it.
Absolutely.
And you showed me that in the face of adversity, you must find a way.
You must find a way. And it's partly knowing yourself and what you can handle, but also learning to be an advocate for yourself, because no one's going to do that as well as you can. No one is going to have your best interests at heart as well as you do. And so you have to use that to propel you. It's hard. And, you know, there is such a thing as imposter syndrome. But if you believe in yourself, you can make it work for you in most circumstances.
So what helped you two, both of you, because Stefan believes in himself as well. I can attest to that. So, you know, how did you, you know, when one person comes along and says, I believe in myself, I'm like, all right, that may very well just be nature. But when two people come along and say that, I'm like,
from the same family, right?
I'm getting to smell nurture here. So
Yes, exactly. I think, for me at least, both our parents played a role in supporting whatever I was interested in and exposing me to tremendous opportunities, learning, reading, music, all kinds of cultural activities, talking about politics, talking about the world. And so when I was 12, my father took me and my two brothers on an anti-war demonstration. I have a picture of it.
Yeah, it's true.
So we did all kinds of things, explored all the cultural things that New York City has to offer as kids with both our parents. So that was pretty wonderful. My father was Jewish. My mother was African American. And so being a biracial kid growing up in the projects in New York City was a very interesting experience because we were anomalies and were often made fun of because of that. But again, that only made us stronger.
So did you also get, I'm hoping that this is not as much a thing anymore, but, you know, in our era, we're all roughly the same age here, did you get the acting white thing from, yeah.
You did?
As a kid, growing up in where we grew up, without question. But, you know, I ignored it. I also had to talk myself out of fights very often.
Ooh,
Yeah.
walk us through that. I want to know about that.
So there was a time when, I don't remember which brother, either you or Vaughn, got into a fight with another boy. And Mom sent me down to break up the fight and to retrieve my brother.
Wasn't me. I think it was the other brother.
Other brother.
I don't know anything about your other brother, by the way.
Oh, we could get into that in a bit.
Okay, great.
So I went down. And then, I guess it was the next day, his older sister wanted to fight me, okay? Because I didn't let them finish the fight. And so she was bigger than me. And the week before, she fought one of my dear friends, girlfriends who lived upstairs, and tore half her hair out of her head. And I didn't want that to happen. So I managed to talk my way out of the fight with all these other children standing around. I talked to her and we didn't fight.
You know, oh, go ahead, David. Did you have a follow-up question?
No.
It's interesting to me. I went to Dartmouth. You went to Princeton, right? Put that to the side. We came, I think people who, I can speak for public housing in New York, particularly in the 70s, 60s, 70s. All of us have some form of PTSD. I think you left by the time it got probably really bad. But that example just reminded me of that. The things that we had to deal with, I mean, if we grew up in Scarsdale or Dix Hills or Montclair, nobody's dealing with that. So you have to deal with certain pathologies, lack of a better word, kids we're competing with in high school. If you go to Westminster, Exeter, or Spence, or Fieldston, I mean, you're competing with them while you're having to deal with all of this craziness, 1970s Harlem. And it's amazing to me, and I give Ma and Dad credit that we had the psychic armor to deal with that. And it just reminded me that you set the foundation, because it, to me, was normal to go to college because I saw you go. So, you know how they say households differ even if you're in the same building? So, Ma wouldn't tell us to read books. She would leave books on the table and we would find them accidentally, right? Which was a good way.
Read them. Read them.
Because we would read them like, she wouldn't tell us, but it was lying around and she'd know we would pick it up.
Right, and in the bookcases.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take us to the Liberation Bookstore on, I think it was 135th Street and 7th Avenue at the time, but all the stuff that was going on in Harlem. And, I was actually at Mosque number 7 where Malcolm spoke. And, so all of this, it was a special place if you can survive it with a lot of different influences. I mean, we lived, and David can attest to this, you lived between Columbia and Lincoln Center, St. John and Divine, libraries, bookstores, Shakespeare and Company. You have all Central Park and Harlem, all of this in one bubble that you could walk to.
Yes, exactly. And
so,
we grew up in Lincoln Center, basically.
Right.
And so now I spend half my week every week in Lincoln Center doing all kinds of things. It's my backyard. My medical school graduation was held at Lincoln Center, which at the time was called Avery Fisher Hall. I just retired from Mount Sinai, where I was a professor in the medical school. Our medical school graduations were at Lincoln Center. So Lincoln Center is basically my backyard, as is Central Park. And so I still take advantage of these lifelong opportunities to participate in everything.
When I was at Dartmouth, I'm sure at Princeton, I think we stood out even as Black students or Black Jewish students. Most of the kids I went to school with, the Black kids, were not from cities. They were from the suburbs. Very few were on financial aid. And there was tension between the suburban kids and the urban Black kids at my school. Did you feel some of that at Princeton?
Not really. Sorry.
I,
Not really, but again, to share a little personal information, I was very fortunate. I took my boyfriend from New York with me to Princeton. And so we rented an apartment
did
across
Ma
the
tell you
street.
to do that too?
No, she wasn't real happy about that.
Yeah, well,
And so one of the positive things about that was I had a room on campus, which I really didn't spend any time with, but I would have lunch on campus every day in the dining hall, one of the dining halls. So that's how I really got to know other students on campus. And what I'm grateful for is that my personal situation allowed me to get to know them on a more honest level, as opposed to having a possible romantic overlay. I got to know them as people. And again, they're mostly guys, almost all guys. So from my college experience, then for the rest of my entire life, the situations I have been in have been predominantly male.
Okay, so I do have a question. So
Okay.
both of you, Stefan and Malcolm, in one way, you kind of lousy guests for a podcast on courage, because you always seem to simply have it. Now, for me, I thought about courage because after the election of Donald Trump, I was thinking, oh my Lord, I'm not very courageous, and what am I going to do now that this disaster is happening? So I'm aware that I have to go up against fear. For me to act courageously, for me means responding to the fear that I feel. I'm not hearing any fear in your stories. Where's the fear?
Okay, I'll give you an example of fear. So when I finished all my training, medical school, internship, residency, and fellowship, I was married at the time with a brand new baby, looking for a job, settled on a town in Pennsylvania with a great practice and a lovely environment, lots of parks, close to New York, close to the beach, close to the mountains. It seemed an ideal place to raise a child and have a family. Got divorced and realized, oh my, I'm the only Black doctor, male or female, for this entire region. Do I want to stay here? So the fear was fear of change because my practice was growing exponentially. I was doing very well. And do I want to suddenly change up my life and stay here? And I realized, 10 years down the line, if I'm not happy, things don't work out, I'm kind of stuck here. So I took the jump. I was recruited to come and create an oculoplastic surgery curriculum at SUNY Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn, which I did. But, at that point, I was a single mother in New York with a 5-year-old. And so that made me nervous, a little apprehensive, and there was definitely fear there. How am I going to do this without much support? I managed to do it, I think, very successfully. I have a beautiful daughter and very brilliant daughter, but it was not easy. Getting people to help and childcare and juggling surgery hours and picking her up from after school activities. I'm going to her activities, concerts, dance recitals, and like. So there was definitely fear there, but I think I was able to make it work. It was very hard, but there was definitely fear. Am I going to be successful at this? Because I'm trying to grow my career.
Yeah. What I'm hearing, what I'm picking up, maybe, please correct me if I'm wrong, is the difference between just going off to Princeton, which maybe for very new, and going off into a career which is male dominated and a lot of white folk, and then getting divorced and deciding what to do best for yourself and your daughter is your daughter.
Yes.
That seems to be the defining difference in those moments.
Yes, without question, because she is unquestionably the most important thing I've ever done in my life. And so having her, taking care of her, was of paramount importance, and making her happy and successful and feeling secure and comfortable. And I think I was able to do that successfully.
Has having been a parent brought a different kind of vulnerability in your life? Feeling of being vulnerable to the world?
Probably. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but and just pondering, I think it did. And I think I was able to convey all of that to my patients. I'm here for you. You may be going through some issues. I'm going to listen to you. For example, I had an 8-year-old who was brought in by her mother. This was some years ago. She had been in a fight and fractured the bones around her eyes. And that's part of what I do, fix fractures, the broken bones around the eyes. Okay. And so meeting her, 6 o'clock on a Thursday evening, and within 10 minutes of meeting her, telling her that I have to do surgery on her. And this kid is scared. She's
Within
crying.
10 minutes?
Within 10, having had the x-rays done, I know the only option to help her was surgery. So I had to explain this to her and to spend time with her and her mother to calm her down, to make her comfortable with the idea that I'm here to help you. And so a lot of doctors won't spend that time, unfortunately. But I was able to, because I knew she felt very vulnerable and very afraid. And so I feel I was able to help her. Now, fun fact about that particular patient is that almost 20 years later, I hadn't seen her. She and her mother found me. Now I'm at Mount Sinai. This happened last year, like 3 months before I retired. They found me and made a wonderful little plaque for me. Yes, I know.
Wonderful.
So spending that time made a huge difference to help her.
So I'm hearing implied here that learning how to spend time with patients, be with patients in a certain way, came in part from being a parent.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I operate on people of all ages, from a week to 105. And so the children are especially important. And I had learned that from being a parent.
This jumps tracks just a tiny bit, sort of ish. I noticed that you're on a site. Pardon me as I had to look up on my monitor, called "Find a Black Doctor," and I was like, "Oh, that's freaking cool." And one of the questions that brought to mind was, I wonder what kind of courage it must take for Black and other underrepresented patients, say in the profession, right?
Oh, yes.
To actually go to a doctor.
Yes. So only 3% of ophthalmologists are Black in the whole country. So there aren't many people in my particular subspecialty who do what I do. And my subspecialty is called oculoplastic, reconstructive, and orbital surgery. So not a lot of people in general have that particular type of training, and many, many fewer Black people and many, many fewer Black women do that. So to have patients seek me out on sites like that and to come to me, they're very grateful. And I'm very grateful to them for having sought me out also.
As you find that it takes a different tuning of your sensibility to talk to patients who are afraid in that way, who maybe have some trepidation about seeking help?
Yes. I try to meet the patient where they are in terms of emotions and level of understanding of their particular situation. And so, I spend time talking to them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My bosses always wanted me to see more patients, but fortunately I was able to just take the time and spend with the patients because they needed it.
This reminds me, I went through cancer a couple of years ago. It was stage 1, caught it super early, gastric bulk lymphoma. So it was just radiation. I got lucky, no chemo. And one thing I learned all my time being in the hospital system, waiting for my diagnosis to be completed, was the service providers, from doctors to nurses to orderlies, were all almost to a person remarkably kind to me in a way that I would not have expected, in a way that I didn't remember from earlier incidents in my life. And it made me wonder if the training had changed. This occurred to me. At one point, there was a lidocaine had been injected. We were going to do a bone marrow biopsy, and it got into a vein, so it went to my brain and gave me symptoms of like a stroke. So I had to go on a stroke protocol. Right. That was scary. I've got a great heart. It wasn't a stroke. But anyway, but there was one, she wasn't a student. She was early resident, perhaps. She had her arm. She would like touch me. And, I noticed that personnel all through my experience would often give me a reassuring touch. But I remember her in particular because she went from the oncologist's office with me in the ambulance to the hospital and stuck with me through the emergency room admittance. And that just hand on my arm and just listening was really powerful. So one question I have is, has the training changed in the medical world?
I would say it has. With that particular thing in mind, caring for the patient, understanding what they're going through and their fears. It's very, very important. The training has definitely changed. So I was very involved in medical education at Mount Sinai Medical School. And so I had firsthand knowledge of that change and how students responded. And they appreciated it because they would definitely make the effort to do so. For example, when I'd have a child who was a patient who had to have surgery, while they were being put under anesthesia, I would stroke their forehead. And they, look into their eyes, and they would be looking into my eyes as they were going under, feeling more comfortable. And I was able to share this and convey this to the trainees, to my residents, and to my medical students. So set the example.
Yeah, I would love to generalize this idea just a tiny bit from here, so going from comforting patients, in that comforting of patients, to use the vernacular, use the framing we have for this podcast, it strikes me that you're also encouraging patients. You're helping patients to find that internal courage to face the moment.
Without question. It's a scary prospect having surgery. It's a scary prospect going under anesthesia. While the vast majority of people do quite well, there is that small percent who don't, and that's very scary. Because patients think, what if I'm in that small percentage? So it's very, very scary. So when I, for example, would do minor surgical procedures in the office, I would often go through breathing exercises with the patients. And I would do the breathing with them to help them relax because there's no general anesthesia. I'm giving them the injection myself in the chair for a minor procedure, okay? But a lot of patients, would be very nervous. So I would go through these breathing. It's very important to have them relax.
Is there a lesson here? Are there any implications here for how we as a community find the courage we need to meet a difficult social and political moment?
We have to stay strong and we have to unite. And it's difficult because there's a lot of fear out there. We don't know what's going to happen and what the individual effects are going to be. But historically, people have been successful in resistance. And so we need to find ways to unite, stick together with a unified message, and basically fight.
Anger and righteous indignation have a place in that fight. Say, in your practice, anger and righteous indignation don't really help the patient very much. Those are more stages of grief than really useful tools. One thing I noticed in the No Kings protest was, I saw righteous indignation. Yes, I saw anger. But I also saw something more akin to joy. And that joy, and I interpreted that joy as a self-comforting, as a hand on the forehead, on the patient's forehead, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. I think you have a really, really good point. I think the joy comes from knowing that other people are feeling the same way, and that perhaps we have a chance at resistance, at fighting this.
Have you ever seen it we're all about the same age. Have you seen a moment like this in our collective lives? What do you think? Have we gone through this before?
I think when Kamala was decided to be a candidate, I think the joy was absolutely there. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for one reason or another. But I think there was tremendous joy. I know I felt it when she became a candidate. So that's in recent history. The joy has been there.
Do you feel we've faced a social political emergency such as this that cuts so close to the bone of who we are, close to the bone of actually being Americans?
Actually, I think historically, and this was a little bit before our being cognizant as teenagers and the Civil Rights Act. I think all that went into fighting discrimination, especially in the South, people, black, white, and others, going south and riding the buses and protesting and sitting at lunch counters. I think all of that was there. And the joy that came out of the Civil Rights Act being signed, I think it was certainly there then.
By the way, my parents are trainers for CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality.
Yes.
Yeah, they're so I'm kind of proud of that moment in their lives.
Yes, exactly.
let me say something. I was intentionally silent for a while. Let me tell you why. Two of my favorite people finally meet. You guys, I'm surprised this is the first time you guys are really meeting. Monica, I've known Millstone for 25 years now, maybe?
It feels like 50, but
I feel like
who's counting?
trying to make it 70.
Yeah.
And he knows Monty.
Okay. Yes.
And so
I was at his funeral.
we
Yes.
worked on films together. Well, one film,
Wonderful.
but two.
Did not talk about that again.
And I'm really enjoying, Millstone, your questions and your answers, Monica. So I'm taking a back seat because those are really good questions, and we wanted to give you a chance to express yourself in this world. So I'm sitting back and enjoying it. But let me make this comment. I wanted to ask you, we're talking about courage. Like Ma gave me and you courage in a lot of ways, and Dad, but Ma in particular, almost superhuman, extraordinary, just to, in the face of authority, to be who you are, to stand up, to make them fear you when you walk into a room, physically, intellectually, spiritually, that I'm that dude, I'm that chick. You got to deal with me. How have you taught your daughter this courage? How have you passed this down? She didn't go to Princeton. She didn't go to Dartmouth. She went to Brown, which is all right.
Geez, just Brown.
Slumming. So, I didn't, but so she did okay. So how did you what is that?
I think I have, mostly by role modeling, doing these things myself. I would take her to work with me sometimes, take her to the operating room at times with me. When it was difficult, sometimes when I was on call, I'd have to take her to the emergency room because I couldn't get anybody to be with her while I went to see an emergency. So she saw all of this firsthand, but also trying to instill a sense of confidence and security in her, that she had what it took to do whatever she wanted, and she could be and do whatever she wanted in life. And also, I think teaching her to be an advocate for herself, as I mentioned earlier today, I think that's really, really important. You can have the skills, but if you don't advocate for yourself, people will walk all over you.
So it's very profound, and it's very clear to all of us, I think, how modeling positive qualities is great for our kids and gets transmitted. But I'm also thinking all of a sudden about what happens when we unintentionally model the bad and how we learn from that. So I grew up with a father who was extraordinarily difficult. He was really violent. He was emotionally violent and he was physically violent. And he's left me with some real tics. I'm a little twitchy.
He's twitchy.
But, and so it's led to some qualities in me that I'm not fond of. But it's also led me to really value kindness in certain ways, pretty powerfully. It's, the negative examples were sexism. The sexism was really gross to my mind. And I saw that, and he modeled some really bad stuff. And then instead of going, yeah, I should do that too, I went, no, that's not where I want to go. Did you experience any of that with your folks? Were there lessons that you needed to unlearn as children in order to become the utterly courageous people that you clearly are?
I hadn't thought of that kind of thing. I can't recall anything in particular. No, I had a very, very happy childhood.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love hearing that. What about you, Stefan?
I got way less of a score on the SAT. I don't remember getting an A in high school. Yeah, it was different because I was the baby of the family, the last one. And I think it was a different time in Douglas also, which is a housing project.
Yes, very different.
It was a lot rougher. Our parents got divorced, I think, when I was 8.
Something like that.
So it was a different dynamic. And I had a really good childhood, and I learned a lot. My family was very intellectual. In some ways, Monica, it was very typical for the Upper West Side at that time, politically, intellectually. So I wasn't around, believe it or not. It was a different family dynamic than what, it was similar but different than what Monica in her formative years was raised, because I was more in the community with the Rucker tournament and Uptown. You were gone by then, right? You were gone by then. Not much, but I can answer. When you asked earlier about the question of how our family, Monica and I, dealt with fear, right? I think that was a question. And I think from our family, Dad and Mom taught us, which what I used, a little different than what Monica used, it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
And I think people don't realize, as simple as that sounds, what the fuck are you afraid of? It just didn't work. And it's that simple. Figure something else out. And when you internalize that, oh, I didn't get into this school, I didn't get into that school, I couldn't become a doctor, I couldn't become a lawyer, I couldn't do this, or the audition didn't work, or this film didn't work. Okay, it's okay.
You move on.
What's next? And I think when I'm trying to remember, when Monty and I started to work with Imus in the morning, and I told Imus, we had written the books, and the books did really well. We written some humor books, and Imus called us to be, in which Millstone Monica was a guest on the Imus show with us.
Been a while here.
That's how far back we go. We had never done radio, and I guess to most people it would be scary. But the way I conquered that, and I was scared, I'm like, look at all the idiots who are doing radio. I'm a pretty smart guy. I could figure that out. So the fear went away. After we did the radio, Harvey Weinstein called us and said, I want you to get into the movie business. Come write a script for us. We go down to Miramax Films, and we meet with him and Bob at the time. This was many years ago. I had never written a screenplay or had anything on it. But look at all to me, that's why I thought. I just said to myself, look at all the idiots who make movies. There's some really bad movies out here. I could figure it out. And so on, and so on. So that was the mechanism for me, that look at all the people who are doing this. I think I'm just as smart as they are. I could figure it out. And then the fear went away. And that's
all right, it kills me to cut this off. I'd love to go on for another hour. Because for one thing, I got a lot of comparing and contrasting to do from my own experience. Because my experience was so different in many ways. So we're going to have to say goodbye soon. But we're going to do
a sequel.
Do a sequel. We will do a sequel. Stefan hates this. I'm letting you know, Monica.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. We do a lightning round each episode of a rose or thorn from the week. What moment did we succeed in being courageous, or what moment did we fail at being courageous? Last episode, I had a failure. This one, I have a small little win. I was on a long bicycle ride with a group of guys over the weekend. It was a really challenging ride. 100 miles, 8,000 feet of elevation gain. It's a lot. And, I barely hold on the back of these things. I managed to, but we had one guy with us who really didn't belong. He had just signed up to the bicycle club, and we ended up waiting for him just for so long. This ride took longer than it should have because of him. Finally, we had to cut him loose, and everyone's waiting for him at the top of a hill, and I'm like, oh God! So nobody wants to let this guy go. Nobody wants to hurt his feelings. These are all really nice guys, and so I sucked it up. I rode back down the hill to where he was, because he was a long way away, and had to say, "Hey, man, it's been lovely riding with you, but we're gonna have to leave you." So that was my act of courage. It was because I didn't want to be unkind, and he, fortunately for me, was gracious. So that's mine. And I'll give you a second to think, Monica, or go to Stefan first.
You can go.
I love putting him on the spot.
Well, I have 2 acts. The first act is, I think I have the courage to ask Monica, you should invite David and our producer Michelle to your annual Christmas party.
Yeah, you should.
You would love it, and Michelle would love it too. And they're I don't know if she lives in Brooklyn now. So, but anyway, it would be a nice thing. 2, I was telling Millstone and Michelle earlier that I had a personal issue with a friend that I didn't want to call. And I called him, and we talked about it. And that took a lot of courage for me to have to discuss things with him and what he was going through. And we figured it out.
Now you're on the spot, Monica.
Oh, this is a difficult question.
Yeah.
Let's pick a rose. There was a young woman who had been trying for several years to get into medical school, and I only met her recently in the last couple of years through her mother. And I've been able to coach her and talk to her and give her various types of assistance. And she finally got into medical school.
Ah, mazel tov.
Okay,
Way.
so yes,
Terrific.
a definite rose.
Before we leave, Monica, did you experience any racism, anti-Semitism in Princeton or medical school? I was just curious.
Yes and no, because being the only in those situations, sometimes you just have to brush things off and move on to be successful. But I had it even with patients. There was one woman, I was on call, and she had been in a car accident. And so she needed the type of work that I would do. And I walked into the room and she looked at me and said, "I don't want you as my doctor. You are not touching me." And I said, "Fine with me.
Die, chick, die. I'm fine with that too, and I'm listening to it. Okay.
I don't need to be here. I'm going back to bed. They'll find somebody else to help you." And there was nobody else to help her. So it was not life-threatening, but the injuries that she had. And so they had ended up having to wait until morning to transfer her to another hospital.
Good.
I said, this is not my problem anymore.
Well, thank you so much, Monica. This has been an utter delight. It's been a long time coming that we had, for us to get a chance to meet, and I hope to see you again soon.
Christmas.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Be well.